They who are in power now see those who follow tradition as a threat to themselves, as a threat to them. Therefore, those in power have to act. The real growth that's been happening in the Roman Catholic Church is with the traditional Latin Mass goers. And everything that they do when they expand and they grow, the other side takes as a personal insult. So they have to be eliminated.
Hey, we're going to be talking about the rumors that are circling about the cancelization of the traditional Latin Mass, the final solution to do away with the TLM. And we're going to get Father Charles Murr on the team to talk about that and why all Catholics, and not just the trad Catholics, should care about this.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
And while we're waiting for Father Charles Murr to join us, I'll just kind of catch you up. Essentially, here's the deal. They feel that Traditionis Custodes didn't go far enough, not enough bishops were imposed it, and therefore they need a new document that will be the final solution. Now, a couple of other tidbits of information have come out since then that I find incredibly fascinating, to include an article also out of Rorate Caeli and LifeSite News to follow up on the story. But the Rorate Caeli one is the one I'm going to quote to you right now. Headline says, Archbishop Viola, the violator of tradition, the dangerous secretary of divine worship, and the man behind the attempts to ban the traditional Mass, his letter to the Melbourne Archbishop. I'll summarize a bit for you. Who is Archbishop Vittorio Francesco Viola OFM? The Secretary of the Dicastery for Divine Worship is said to be proud to wear the episcopal ring of none other than the devious creator of the Novus Ordo, Archbishop Annibale Bugnini. Archbishop Viola, who is behind this document, rumors have it it'll come out on July 16th, which is on the anniversary of Traditionis Custodes, who wears the ring of Bugnini. I would argue that there is an intention behind that to be the successor of Archbishop Annibale Bugnini and to carry out and to maybe further his cause of killing off the traditional Latin Mass. Rorate Caeli, they did an interview with Andrea Grillo. He is he's basically one of the chief voices from a lay perspective behind Traditionis Custodes. And he basically answers the question, because we want everyone on the same page, you will be a team player, even if we have to force the issue. So where's the charity in that, I ask? You are going to do more harm than good. You are causing more division than you are unity in your vitriolic, as my description, vitriolic cause to carry on the legacy of Bugnini.
Father Charles Murr is in the house. I am glad you're here. I want to talk to you about these rumors coming out of the Vatican that they intend to try to kill off the traditional Latin Mass on the anniversary of Traditionis Custodes. How quaint that is. And one of the aspects to the story that I'm fascinated with, that I really want to get your take on, and Rorate Caeli's been sort of leading the charge on the reportage of this. And in one of their articles that we're linking to today, they mentioned Archbishop Vittorio Francesco Viola OFM from the Secretary of the Dicastery for Divine Worship, who apparently, allegedly, reportedly is proud of wearing the ring of Archbishop Annibale Bugnini. I don't know if that's true, but that sounds like a Bond villain move to me.
Listen, it sounds crazy enough to be true in the Roman Curia. Yeah,
right, exactly. So I wanted to get you on the program to talk about that connection and get you to remind us, as you've done in the past and done so many other places. Let's talk about Bugnini. Who was Archbishop Annibale Bugnini, and what did he do?
Well, I just threw out 2 days ago the description that Father Luis Boyer made of Annibale Bugnini. He said he was a man who was a man bereft of culture and of education, I believe. He had no time for him, and also honesty. He said he was a dishonest man. Now, this is a man who worked with him for 10 years and knew him very well. No one really liked him. but everyone feared him, right? Yeah, and that was it. And Bugnini was, let me put it this way, Joe. I lived in Italy for 10 years. There are a great number of Italians who are just middle-class, good people Italians.
Sure.
There are classless Italians, like we have in every society, but there are classy Italians. There are Italians of real class that you don't find normally in American society or Western society. They're their own class. Bugnini was not belonging to that class. Let me put it that way, nor the middle class. He was, well, as Father Luis Bouillet said, a man who had no culture and no honesty. And when he said that he had no honesty, Bouillet gave examples of that. And his examples of that were this. Bugnini was the go-between between Pope Paul VI and his committee. He had a committee working on liturgical changes, a committee of about 10. Well, some of them were Protestants also. The people who made up our new mass were Protestants. Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, really lovely.
I don't know if there's a Protestant, stupid enough to invite a Catholic onto their committee to redo their services.
That's right.
I can't.
Why doesn't it always? It never works in the reverse. I never know why.
No, it doesn't. It just doesn't work that way. Anyway, right. Bugnini was the go-between to Pope Paul VI and to his committee, and he would actually lie to each party, to the Pope and then to the committee. He would tell the Pope when the Pope objected to a change, whether it be small or large, that Bugnini was pushing. He wanted this modified. He wanted that changed. The Pope would say, "There's no need for that," and he said, "But Holy Father, the committee says there is." And now this is a committee of experts that we've called together, and they're working on this, and they say that it is. Well, and then the Pope would defer to the committee. When the committee was against something, Bugnini would say, "The Holy Father wants it. He demands on this." And it wasn't true. None of it was true. What was true was Bugnini wanted what Bugnini wanted.
Right.
And since there wasn't one way of checking this with that, finally, Father Luis Bouillet, who I got to meet, I met him in San Francisco shortly before he died. Father Luis Bouillet, who was a Protestant convert, I should say a Catholic convert from Protestantism. He was a man of God. He was very convinced of what he was doing, and I think he worked sincerely to be as faithful as he could to everything that was Catholic. He left his whole livelihood from before to become Catholic. So you don't do that easily and then abandon everything. So Luis Bouillet was a man of faith, and he certainly was when I met him, because he was objecting to all of the liturgical changes that had caused so much liturgical abuse. Well, Luis Bouillet one day had the opportunity of meeting Pope Paul VI himself in person. And that's when he found out that for years this had been happening.
Yeah.
And he said to the Holy Father, "But Holy Father, we changed our opinion because you were insistent on such and such a change." The Pope said, "That's not true at all." And the Pope then told him, "But I changed my opinion on such and such because you, the committee, were insistent." He said, "Not true at all." So it was Bugnini who did all of this. And when it finally came out, the accusations against him for being a Freemason, that was it. That was when Pope Paul VI had enough. Also, Archbishop Benelli, who was the sostituto in the Secretary of State, they had all had enough, and they got rid of him and sent him to Iraq.
I've asked you this question before. I asked you this question in the past when we've talked about this, and I'm going to ask it again just for the sake of those that may not be as familiar with the story, but it still boggles my mind, and that is, okay, wasn't Bugnini associated with the Freemasons? And number one, number two, if Paul VI catches him in a conversation and goes, why are you telling people I said this? I didn't say that. What are you doing? Like, why didn't he go, you know what? I'm reversing this whole process. Forget all of this. We're not doing this. This is a manipulation. I'm being set up. Why wouldn't Paul VI, like if he had concerns, if he saw red flags, why didn't he take the appropriate action? Why did he just allow it to go through and keep Bugnini around, even if he sent him to Iran?
I understand that. We've talked about this before, Joe, and I understand I understand that because it makes sense. What your reaction is a sensible one, but things in the Vatican were not sensible. They didn't run on sensible. They ran on two levels: ecclesiastical diplomacy, and all sorts of intrigue. This is the world that most of them lived in. I don't know that it's changed at all. As a matter of fact, I do know it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. The only thing that have changed are the players, but the same kind of thing exists still today. And of course, you've got everyone fearful of losing his job.
Yeah.
In those days past and today, it's the same thing. So when you eliminated somebody, to eliminate, you promoted. That's how you got rid of people.
Wow.
You simply didn't throw them out. You didn't do that. Not to a bishop. You could do that to the lesser clergy, to a priest,
sure,
even to a Monsignor, but not to a bishop. A bishop not. Bishops were the old boy club. That was it. And they took care of themselves. Rumor has it they still do.
I made this point on Saturday. I was at a private event. Bishop Strickland was there with me, and we were talking to a small group of people.
What an outstanding man, Strickland.
Yeah, amen.
What an outstanding, godly man. Great man.
Amen. Yeah, he's coming to our event, our big conference in August in Niagara Falls too. We're looking forward to it. But I made that point,
excellent.
and I was telling him how I was telling everybody there how I have interviewed canceled priests, and I said there's a tragedy with the priests that the bishops that's different for bishops. And I knew he was sitting next to me when I said it, and I said, when a bishop gets canceled, it's not the same as when a priest gets canceled. Canonically, there are different statuses, and for a priest, it's even more tragic. And the new, and I think it's new. Maybe you can correct me, and it's been around a long time. But it seems like the new method is that the process is the punishment for priests. So you get a priest you don't like, you isolate him, and you put him in canonical limbo land. You never laicize him. You just cut him like a kite. He's just dangling in the wind. And that priest sometimes goes on to, act like lay people and conduct like lay people, even though they've never been laicized. They don't know. It's like it's part of the process to punish them this way.
Yes.
And they're just left in this limbo. And it's a tragedy because they still want to be a priest. They still are priests. And they're just, left to suffer this way. Whereas a bishop, like to your point, they can't do that to the bishop. It's so even Strickland, even Strickland gets to enjoy his cancelization is, I would say, far more digestible than it is for a lot of canceled priests. Do you think that's true?
On one level, yes, Joe, and on another level, no, because what they've done to Strickland is unheard of. It's outrageous what they've done to him. They've taken away his right to act as a bishop in his own diocese, and at the same time left him as a bishop. So, but he can't. He's in his own limbo. They put him in a special limbo for bishops.
Yeah.
It's really. And remember something too. I don't know how this works in the world. I've had secular jobs when I was growing up. I was in advertising. I was a bartender for a while, this and the other. I understand how things kind of work in the world, but in the clergy, they work very differently. The clergy, there's so much innuendo, there's so much rumor, there's so much nonsense that people would not imagine exist in the clergy. You would think that they would be bigger men and more forgiving because they're more associated with Christ and forgiveness and Christ likeness, right? But no, when something is said about you, everybody takes 10 giant steps back. You don't hear from friends any longer. That's it. Nobody wants to be associated with you. You'll get telephone calls. Well, so and so said this, and so said that. Well, would you like to go here? I don't know if we should be seen in public.
Right.
Can you imagine? Yeah, seriously.
No, I get
said,
that.
well, you know,
I've had that happen to me.
I talked to priests. This is a common thing among these priests. They said they talked to old classmates. They were best friends for 25 years. No, I don't think we should be seen in public. I said, well, what do you think? Somebody's going to come up with a blow dart and hit you in the back with a poison arrow and kill you while you're having soup or something? What's the matter with you?
I mean, they do have Bond villains now in the Vatican, so yeah. I mean, what do you think it means What do you think it means when Archbishop Viola is wearing the ring of Bugnini? I mean, that is signaling such an agenda.
If it's true, what a message he's sending out, huh?
Right, exactly. It's so crazy.
I mean, talk about subtle.
Right, exactly. It's so subtle.
Yeah.
Oh, the other day I was thinking about you too. I was thinking about you just the other day when that report came out about how Pope Francis is now potentially going to be investigated by the UN for wiretapping because he apparently gave his authority to the Vatican investigators to wiretap this British citizen who allegedly defrauded the Vatican in that warehouse deal in Chelsea there. So, and I thought, wiretapping. Here's an actual report of someone else talking about wiretapping from the Vatican.
Well,
Father Charles Murr has been saying this for years.
You, Joe. Sometimes I don't understand you. Does that shock you?
Well, I guess it's validation, I guess is where I'm going with that. It's just validation. You've been saying it for years. And here is another source basically saying, yeah, this is a thing. It happened to me, and he wanted some justice on that. And the whole time I'm thinking, how many times when we've talked about stories like this, your book, Murder in the 33rd Degree, and all of that it contains, and how many Catholics go, oh, that's just tinfoil hat wearing nonsense. And you're like, no.
It's not. Oh, believe me, it's not.
Yeah, right.
Believe me, it's not.
It's a thing. Even Novus Ordo Catholics who plan to never go to a TLM should care about the reports about a document that wants to kill the TLM. My argument is this. I would argue that most Catholics, most Novus Ordo going Catholics, would never in a million years say, we should force the Eastern Orthodox to change divine liturgy to make it look like the Novus Ordo so that we can all have unity. They would not say that. They wouldn't agree to that.
Never.
To them, that would feel wrong.
Never.
Like they wouldn't want to take away the Russian liturgy or the Ukrainian or the Ruthenian or the Coptic. They would never in a million years. And yet they seem to be okay with the killing of the tradition in the West. That's bizarre. That's darn near schizophrenic.
Well, you know what it is? It's just a minute, Joe. Just a minute. I see I see the way you're looking at it, but look at it from this point of view. They who are in power now see those who follow tradition as a threat to themselves, as a threat to them, and also what they're saying is what you've done to us the past 60 years, we're not taking any longer. Right? Therefore, those in power have to act. They have to be obliterated. This has to be wiped off the map, and that's what they're doing, and that's what they intend to do. Frankly, I don't think they're going to be successful. I think it's going to be a calamity. I think this is the preface to a calamity, but that's what they're going to do because they can't stand the criticism. See, they feel that anything. Look. It's like to be a poor example. You lose a friend. Let's say you lose a wife, and the wife remarries and she's with a man and she's having a wonderful life. Well, you can't stand that. That bothers you. They should be having a miserable life. You should be having a good life. You were the one who divorced the wife, right? But
Right.
it turned out the other way around. Well, this is sort of like that.
Yeah.
They see the success. Look, they're looking at the success, the growth, the real growth that's been happening in the Roman Catholic Church over the last 20 years, even more than that, but certainly more in the last 20 years, is with the traditional Latin Mass goers. They're actually building. They're building cathedrals. They're building churches. All of a sudden, that this is serious. And everything that they do when they expand and they grow, the other side takes as a personal insult. So
Yeah.
they have to be eliminated, right? This is the problem. Rather than say, just a minute. Why in the world couldn't these people be offering and celebrating the same Mass that's been going on in one form or another for the last 1,800 years? Let them do that. Why not make it into a rite?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened with the Anglicans, Joseph? What happened with the Anglicans, the Anglican Catholics? Don't they have their own rite? Try to talk to somebody who's not Catholic at all and explain to him the situation. Especially if he or she is a pragmatic person, they'll tell you there's no reason that this can't be resolved in real quick.
Yeah.
By permitting the traditionalists their own Catholic rite. That's all. Very simple. Very, very simple. Pope Benedict came up with the solution. John Paul II came up with the solution. What they were doing was exactly reconciling this rift. They were putting it together, and it was being put together beautifully. Wasn't a problem. In the same parishes, they were having the Novus Ordo, and then they would have one or two Latin masses of the Vetus Ordo. There was no problem. As a matter of fact, the problem was that many people who went to the Novus Ordo were confused, and they went to the Vetus Ordo and remained.
Yes,
remained.
and then they were like,
"Here's the thing.
What? This is amazing."
Here's a little difference that's happening. When you belong to the Novus Ordo, and I've talked to hundreds of people who have had this problem. They move to a new city, as mobility is really part of our American culture with jobs. They move to a new city. They're looking for a church. They have to go church shopping.
Yeah.
For weeks and weeks and weeks until they find, and this is all Novus Ordo.
Yeah.
Until they find a place where that's not too crazy.
Not too crazy.
But they have to go through 10 different parishes to find, and they're seemingly or supposedly all the same. Well, they're not all the same. Mm-hmm. That's the chaos that people want to avoid. So this is just the Novus Ordo. I mean, I know people who drive by 4 different parishes, Catholic parishes, to get to the Novus Ordo Mass that doesn't drive them crazy.
Right. Yeah, I know it. That's part of the tragedy of the Traditionis Custodes was, like, even in my neck of the woods, it was flourishing. The TLM was being said at Novus Ordo parishes that had never seen a TLM before. And Catholics were being introduced to this rich tradition, and they were loving it. And then all of a sudden, they killed it off. That is the real tragedy. Yep. It's not the SSPX chapel or the FSSP parish or the Institute of Christ the King or what have you. No, they're still here. And now they're packed. Their parking lots are full. And we have to go out and raise $20 million to build a bigger church because we can't house the number of people that are there. The real tragedy is it was growing in the suburban parish, as Father Mateg would say, St. Typicals. And now it's not. And those young seminarians who were learning, who became priests, they were learning the TLM, and they were the ones saying these masses at these parishes. Now they're forbidden to say it. That is a tragedy. That's an abuse, frankly, of those priests, of the faithful, and of the tradition.
Of course it is. Nobody would disagree with you. No one would disagree with you. But tell me, would this make sense anywhere else?
No.
Would any other institution that you know, or government, or business, or anything else operate in such a way? Would they do that?
Yeah, well, the mob would.
Would they try to accommodate everybody?
Question. I understand Bugnini was promoted to Iran due to liturgy issues and Freemason claim. Was he found really to be a Freemason? If so, why do others say he was allegedly a Freemason? Why not clear the air on it?
Well, it's the point of my book. I asked
Murder in
in that
33rd
book,
degree.
and I've asked outside of that book, please show us the Gagnon report. Make it public.
Yeah.
Make it public. There's nothing to hide in it. Make it public. Well, they won't. In the Gagnon report, this is exactly the question that Cardinal Gagnon dealt with. Was one of the many problems, but one of the major ones was the Masonic influence in the Roman Curia, members of the Roman Curia who were Masons and pushing for the Masonic agenda. Liberty, fraternity, equality, right? That's what they wanted. Oof. And wasn't that also the Alta Vendita was asking for, they were waiting, what did they say exactly? I'm trying to remember. Wasn't that it, Joe? They knew they could never get a man in the papacy to be a Freemason, but they would be happy with one who was in agreement with them, or who would be useful to them in the position.
Yes, somebody asked in the chat box, like, is Pope Francis a Freemason? And I was going to bring that up and say, no, I don't believe he's a Freemason, because he doesn't have to be. And the Alta Vendita doesn't want him to be anyway. The Alta Vendita just wanted a Freemason-friendly,
that's right.
A Freemason-adjacent Pope to be on the team, because that would be far more effective. In fact, in the Alta Vendita, which I have this book here, The War of the Antichrist with the Church and Christian Civilization by Monsignor George F. Dillon, edited by Joshua Charles. I interviewed Joshua Charles about this book last year.
Joshua, right?
Great
Joshua
book.
Charles?
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. I'm trying to find that quote real quick, if I can get my hands on it really quickly. But it's the same. It's the French Revolution. You know, liberty, equality, fraternity. That's all the French Revolution.
Anne says, I personally believe there is something more than an ideology behind this disruption, behind the corruption of the clergy. But deliverance requires a sincere desire to repent and to change.
You're talking about the diabolical, and we must never negate the diabolical or not pay attention to it, because it's always part of the church. The diabolical is always part of the church. Where the greatest presence of God is on this earth, there is the greatest presence of the devil. You can be sure of that. That's the lesson that Monsignor Marini taught me that night we were walking in Rome. I was scandalized by the people we encountered who insulted a priest, and I said, right here in the shadow of St. Peter's Basilica, and he started laughing. He said, if you would meet some of those I work with inside that basilica, inside the Vatican, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
okay. So
and I was scandalized at that. And he said, why are you scandalized at that? You believe that the Pope is somebody very special and very close to God, don't you? I said, I do. He said, well, what a better place. Where else do you think the devil would be? Close to that, as close as he possibly can get to that. So don't discount the diabolical in what's happening.
So this is the permanent instruction to the Alta Vendita, which is so when I say Freemason, I think too many people think of the guys wearing the funny hats, driving little go-karts at parades, you know, and raising money for Shriners hospitals. There's that level of Shriners. There's that level of Freemasonry. I was third degree Master Mason, the Blue Lodge. My dad, 32nd degree Scottish Rite, still is. But what we're talking about is the level above that. The Masons that cooperated with the lodges and to carry out a more nefarious agenda. So we're talking about a level above, really. Yes. But this is the quote from the Alta Vendita. It says, quote, the Pope, whoever he may be, will never come to the secret societies. It is for the secret societies to come first to the church in the resolve to conquer the two. The work which we have undertaken is not the work of a day, nor of a month, nor of a year. It may last many years, a century perhaps, but in our ranks the soldier dies and the fight continues. We do not mean to win the popes to our cause, to make them neophytes of our principles and propagators of our ideas. That would be a ridiculous dream. No matter in what manner events may turn, Should cardinals or prelates, for example, enter willingly or by surprise in some manner into a part of our secrets, it would be by no means a motive to desire their elevation to the see of Peter. That elevation would destroy us. In other words, him being an admitted Freemason would be an end to their dreams. Instead, he must be a secret cooperator. Ambition, it goes on, ambition alone would bring them to apostasy from us. The needs of power would force them to immolate us. That which we ought to demand, that which we should seek and expect, as the Jews expected the Messiah, is a pope according to our wants. Close quote from the Alta Vendita, as quoted by Monsignor Charles F. Dillon in his work, The War of the Antichrist. Great book. So 75% of this audience right now believes that it's going to happen, that they are going to try to ban the TLM. You know, my opinion remains the same. Father Charles, I ask you. So yesterday I said, I know they're trying. They want to. There is a contingent that wants to. They're pushing for it. But I'm not convinced, somewhat controversial opinion of mine, I'm not convinced Pope Francis truly cares all that much about the TLM, the Novus Ordo, or any liturgy for that matter. I think he is only throwing bones to his constituency. He's only trying to help those that got him elected, that supported his election. So it's their pet project, so he supports them. But I don't personally believe he cares all that much one way or the other. He doesn't really seem all that interested in any liturgy. What do you say?
He doesn't seem to be interested in any liturgy.
I don't think he is. I don't think it motivates him.
Well, all I can tell you is that is what he's done. He has named everyone who's close to him. He's brought them closer in affiliation to his government. The government he's put together are all people are like-minded people, and many of those do not want anything to do with the Latin liturgy. They want nothing to do with tradition. They want nothing to do with anything. You have to remember something too. As we have a lot of lay people, we have a number of lay people. I know some of them, and I think you do too, who go to Mass every Sunday, sometimes even more than that. Good family men and family women. But in all earnestness, they are practical atheists. They don't believe anything. I know a lot of people who are active enough in their parish because they want to support the school where their children are going to school. They have no time for religion, not really. Religion really isn't it's an appendix. And they go to golfing events and they have socials and they have cocktail parties to raise money for the parish. But they're not really concerned about matters theological or matters religious. For all practical purposes, they are practical atheists today. And there's study. Jordan Peterson does a great study on what that practical atheism means. We also have those kind of people governing in part the church. People would think it's hard for a priest or a bishop or a cardinal to be an atheist. I don't think it's so hard. I think you can easily lose the faith over the years if you're not practicing it, A, if you're not praying, B, if you're not offering Mass daily, C, if you're not in the mix, you can easily lose that great gift. Look at how many people were in love. Everybody that I know was in love when he and she got married. 20 years later, many of them are divorced. How did that happen? Right. Well, it happened because they weren't taking care of each other. They weren't taking care of the relationship. They weren't fostering it. The same thing happens with priests, with the clergy, and believing in God. And it can happen. So many times you have people who really are not believers, but they are guiding the laity.
Yeah. Yeah.
to their own agenda. All right. I'm sorry I'm sorry if that scandalizes anybody, but it's the truth, and we all know it's the truth.
So one of the arguments is Traditionis Custodes didn't go far enough because a lot of the world's bishops simply ignored it or barely gave it any effort. So they want to force the hand of these bishops. So that's the argument. I'm not as convinced that a lot of the world's bishops did ignore it. Like, my cardinal certainly wasn't going to the extent of killing it off, but at the same time, he went a long way to implementing it. So I feel like most bishops were in that category. So do you think most bishops ignored it?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I think they actually did.
A lot of bishops, a number of bishops ignored it.
Oh, you
But
do?
the
You think that
majority
they
of
ignored it?
bishops, yes, but the majority of bishops implemented it. They did
What
what
does
they
that
could.
say about the bishops?
Well, it says a lot about the bishops. It says a lot about them. One of the things that I'll give credit to His Holiness, he's examining the way bishops are chosen, which is a very good thing to examine. It's a very good thing to examine. That should be examined. And Pope Francis he wants that examined, how bishops are chosen. Today they're just chosen diplomatically. And they're chosen by the old boys club. We want a new member, right? That would really be nice to stop, and get bishops get priests who are really loved and respected for truth tellers and by their people in their parishes. This would be a very good start.
It would be
Not that I'm not saying that all bishops are bad. They're not. There are some wonderful men who are bishops. But whenever you get to a point where you have to look at them and you're reminded of St. Thomas More and St. John Fisher. St. John Fisher being the only bishop in England who opposed the king. Of all of them, there's something wrong. And when they're all quiet, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
There's just something wrong. They're not supposed to be quiet. They're supposed to be voices.
Exactly.
Just remember that not many, I have to be careful of that. Some of the people who were involved with even drawing up these documents don't necessarily even care. They don't care. They were told what to do and they're doing it. That's it, period. They could care less. They could care less.
Yeah.
When I worked in the Vatican, I've met all sorts of people, a lot of monsignors. I knew some priests and monsignors who had not heard a confession in 10 years. They had not heard a confession. They had not been in a parish. They had not been anything. And this is also a very easy way to lose your soul, by not having any contact with the people of God. And we have a lot of those. What was the Morris West wrote of the Shoes of the Fisherman? Was it the shoe? No, The Devil's Advocate. Pardon me. He wrote The Devil's Advocate. If you get a chance, you should read that. It's very beautiful. It begins with a Monsignor from the Vatican who's in the cause for the saints, and he's been diagnosed with cancer. And all of a sudden, he has very little time to live, and how his life changes, and how he gets back to God, because he had gotten away from God without even knowing it himself. Anyway, where am I going with all that? I don't know. I'm just saying, I mean, I get on these tangents. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
That should be a podcast for you, the Murr tangent.
Yes.
The Father Murr tangent.
The Murr tangent sounds like an old Robert Ludlum novel or something.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, the Murr
Yes,
tangent.
it does. Yes, it does. I like that.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.